Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Loading Mag NUFC away days. Finally, the window's closed, and we're back to proper football. Tonight, myself and Richie will take you through the preview for massive game, Newcastle against West Ham. Just look, initially, Richie, what are your thoughts going into this weekend? No Bruno. Will it matter? Will it make a difference?
Well, it probably will make a difference because obviously one of our best players is missing. But the interesting thing that you said, and I know this is going to wind down up, is the fact you've just said proper football returns this week. How can it be when West Ham playing?
Oh, look, I can see Danny. He's clocking it all. He's taking it all in.
I know. We've got to give as good as we get, though. I know what's going to be coming for it over the next 60, 90 minutes, whatever it is going to be.
Definitely, but look, I'm sure Dan will get his say. Mr. Lawless is in the house. But firstly and foremostly, welcome to everyone in the chat. Yano's back. Good to see you back in. Great to see you in the chat. Paul, as always. Keity, great to have you in there. Colty, welcome to the show. Would I eat there, as always, top man in the chat. William Smith, Kamal, our resident mod, Lisa Mole. I hope you're well. Les is in the house. Mark Todd, he's everywhere. Mark Todd, great to have you in there as well. Solo, Jordy 2 for life, Jimmy Watt, Michael Palmer, Chris UK Essex, great to have you in there. Ray Burrow, great to have you with us as well, and Mark Blake and many others. Welcome to away days. And look, questions are already flying in. We'll make sure that we get all of these questions for Dan. And look, as always, there is no better way of previewing a game than having the opposition's view. And it's a pleasure, as always. Must be his 4th or 5th appearance now for us on Loaded Mag. Let's welcome in West Ham Fans TV and very own Dan Lawless. How you doing, my man?
Yeah, all good, mate. Listen, Richie, any more of that, I'll be ringing up Netflix and grassing you up over that theme song, yeah? So,
I didn't pick it, mate. I didn't pick it. It's all right.
We'll just point the finger to Daz. Blame Daz.
I'm getting this operation shut down.
He's already on it as well. Already on it. He's shutting down everything at the moment. He's shutting down Chelsea's spending. He's shutting down our approach for one of their boys that we'll get into in a second. He's even questioning and trying to shut down Anthony Gordon's move to Newcastle. But we'll get into all that in a second. That is for sure. Look, Dan, I know you've not been well, have you, that last couple of days? So
no, mate. No. So yeah, I've just been recovering. I'll try and bring the energy. But yeah, mate, it's been rough.
No, definitely. And first and foremost, appreciate you making the effort to come on and preview the game. But look, first and foremost, we have to talk about it. I'm going to make it the first topic of conversation. I know you weren't happy about this. We traded a few exchanges the other day with regards to this, but we're going to start with this man, Harrison Ashby, former West Ham right back, now Newcastle United's right back. 3 million in the West Ham coffers. What do you make of that deal? Be honest, as you always are. What's the deal from the West Ham perspective of Ashby's move?
In the words of the Everton fans, he's a rat, lad. He's a rat. No.
Is he really, though? What's happened?
I'm so conflicted over this move, and I think a lot of the West Ham fan base is, because it's one of those cases we've got a few issues with young players either being shipped out or choosing not to stay. We had Sonny Perkins did the same thing, left us for Leeds, chose not to sign a new contract. We've had other promising youngsters that we've just sold off. So there's a concern in the fan base about what's going on in the academy. But, you know, there has been questions. Everyone, you know, and this, every time I've talked about it, fans bring up to me, there's rumors he's got attitude problem, not liked in the dressing room, whatever. I don't know whether that's people making excuses for Moyes or the club. So I don't know what to think. He looked promising when he played. Nothing that says like I weren't getting Declan Rice vibes from him, I'll tell you that. But he looked like something you could go, do you know what? If he gets a few more chances, and I think that's the big thing. Like he hasn't really been given the opportunities, especially last season when at right back, you know, Sufal, who's come good again this season, but he's coming back off surgery. He was poor last season. Johnson was injured. So there was no reason why he couldn't have played more games, other than maybe because he wouldn't sign the contract. I don't know. But so it'll be very interesting. How this transfer goes is going to say a lot about the club. If he goes on to be a world beater, questions will need to be asked. If he flops, then it vindicates the club and Moyes and that, you know. But yeah, so it's a weird one for me, to be honest, because if he comes in now where your team's flying, where you can then strengthen and sign all these players, you know, is he going to get ahead? Like, is he literally? Are you really looking at him as the successor to Trippier, or are you going to put your eggs on this basket, or are you actually going to sign a quality right back in the summer with Trippier getting older? This is the thing.
No, great question, Rich. I'll throw that to you. I've got my opinion on this, but what do you think to what Dan said? Do you think Ashby is the successor to Kieran Trippier, or do you think, as Dan said, we're going to go and splash the cash on another right back and he just plays second and third fiddle?
I think obviously going off the plans of what Eddie Howe and Dan Ashworth have done, I think you'd expect to say yes, he is the long-term plan. Obviously, us as Newcastle fans haven't seen much of Dan, or know more about him than what we do, obviously, because obviously you've seen him come through the youth ranks at West Ham. I think what we do is, obviously, we know that Kieran Trippier signed a contract extension in the last 10 days and put an extra year on his contract. So he's now got 2.5 years left on his contract. So for me, you're looking on that as you've got 2.5 years to possibly have a look at this lad and work with him, for him to be an understudy to not just probably currently one of the best right backs in the Premier League. That's not just me saying that because he's a Newcastle fan. You look at a lot of stats, a lot of individual articles and publications, and a lot of them are saying he's the best right back in the Premier League. But he's also been in ratings in the top 10 of top 5 leagues in Europe of players creating assists. I think was it on Who Scored, he was the second highest rated player in the whole of the top 5 leagues so far this season. So it says that Trippier is probably one of the best players, not just in his position. So for me, Ashby's got a prime example here where he can learn under probably the best in his field at the moment. Obviously, the management can do their coaching on him as well. Like, we know they can develop with other players. We've seen that with the turnaround in Almiron with Joe Linton. Shaw's got back to how he was. Longstaff's gone back to the brief things we saw when he was under Rafa. So obviously they have their coaching touches on him as well. He's got everything there to succeed, to be that long-term successor. But now, for me, the ball's in his court. He's got, for me, realistically, he's got 18 months to do it, because when Trippier gets into that last year of his contract, that's when you start to think, right, what's his legs like? If Ashby's possibly not going to be the long-term successor, has he got a further year after that, or do we now need to go and splash the cash to have a long-term replacement now for that position? So for me, at the moment, yes, he is, but he's got 18 months to show that improvement and development.
Because if Trippier gets injured, like, that's a lot of expectations to put on him, like, to come in straight away and be the starting right back at his age when he's.
I think the minute it is now, if you've got Manquillo, but to me, I think you've got nothing to lose by putting him in over Manquillo. Obviously, he's a similar. What I've seen on clips and stuff, he's a very similar sort of attacking fullback. Obviously, you can back that up or not, Dan. Obviously, you've seen more of them. And obviously, he's going to have aspects of his game he's going to need to improve on. But for me, he's a better replacement for how Newcastle play than what Manquillo is. But we've also got to remember that Emil Crafts will be due back from injury in about April. And obviously, he's a Swedish national fullback as well. So for me, it's only about riding these next 2-3 months as Ashby being the backup for now. And obviously, you can learn and improve in that sort of time as well. And obviously, then you start to get the situation where you've got pre-season. So he's roughly, for me, got 8 months to show whether he's the backup for right now, or it's still going to be a year or so down the line.
Yeah, for me, I think he's the successor. I genuinely do. I think if Trippier was to get injured right now it may well be a problem because he's only fresh new into the club. I think once he's got the training under his belt, he's got the structure, he's got the tactics, he's got how we play in our system. The one thing that hasn't been mentioned it might well have been actually, is the leadership that he shows. Kieran Trippier, for example, the way he leads, the way he commands from that right hand side of defence. I don't see any other right back in the Premier League having that sort of influence on their team the way that Kieran Trippier does. Ashby will be seeing this. He'll be seeing how he acts, how he goes about his business, and he'll want to follow suit. So it's a natural progression there. They are very similar players in terms of that. Harrison Ashby's been quite open in his talk. He is an attacking right back. He likes to get forward. He likes to get balls into the box. He likes to play high up the pitch. That's what Trippier does for us. We've also seen from some clips that he's not bad at set pieces either, and he openly talks about how he was practicing them quite a lot when he kind of broke into the first team. Not necessarily straight away. I think he was like 18, 19 when he first started really practicing his set pieces. So he's got that in his locker that's very similar to Trippier as well. So it doesn't surprise me. You don't always have to go and buy crazy money or spend crazy money and buy someone to come into that position. Sometimes you can develop a player to be that person. And let's be honest, Newcastle United have got the person that loves to develop players in Dan Ashworth. That's the type of signing that Dan Ashworth likes to bring in. And we've seen it in Brighton, the sort of young, talented players they're bringing through all the time, or signing and then developing through the system. I think Harrison Ashby will be the same. But I just want to talk to you about this as well, because in my opinion, you might think differently, Dan, is that he's shared and said thank you to the West Ham fans today, and not long ago, in fact, thanking the club, all the staff and players for everything they've done since he was age 90. I'm not going to read it out, but it was out there. I'll let you read it yourself. I mean, what do you think of that? Is that him showing respect, or do you honestly do you just not care?
I mean, look, it was very brief, wasn't it? Like, as farewells go, for someone who's been at the club since he was 9 years old, look, like going back to our days when Joe Cole came back and was playing. That's how long it goes back, and very brief, to the point, almost like, yeah, I'm just doing it because this is something you have to do. So I look at it. A few fans got taken in by it, but I don't. All right, nice one. Yeah, whatever. Like, that's how I looked at it. Even Gordon, who basically ditched his club in the middle of a relegation battle, like wrote some big long thing, some big long heartfelt message.
Well, yeah, I mean, Gordon practically kept them up last season, so
Yeah, I mean, look. I was joking when I said about Ashby being a rat, but I mean, Gordon really is, man. That's your boyhood club ditching them in the middle of a relegation battle mid-season to join Newcastle, who Everton and Newcastle fans, for some reason, I don't know what it goes back to, do not like each other.
It's because of the Scout Mackhams.
All right. Yeah, that's probably it, isn't it? Yeah, it gives
it. And because they just want to be us, that's why. That's basically what it is. Is it? In my opinion, honestly, and I know it's not. We're not got Everton fan on at this point in time, but we'll talk about it. Everton have seen themselves for a long time now as being that seventh club outside the top six. They have, even when they've not performed very well, they've always seen themselves that way. And in the last couple of years, I don't know if you noticed that Jamie Carragher in Sky, he's been banging the drum for Everton big time. He's almost passed off Liverpool and become an Everton fan the way he talks about them. And they spent the money to try and back that up. They bought James Rodriguez in. They spent over 500 million on trying to be that team. And what is it ended up them in? It's ended up them being in a relegation battle and not being able to sign players or struggling to sign players because of financial fair play. And then you see Newcastle United. There weren't a threat to them. Always fighting relegation, always down there, languishing. And then we get our new owners and all things change. And what we do is that we do things differently to them. We're smarter with our money. with our manager choices, with the people in the background like Dan Ashworth, that's come in and made a difference in terms of the type of players that we're targeting. And they see us doing it in the way in which they wish their club was doing it. And it's all about frustration. So what they've done is seen us as a bit of a target. For me, I've had an issue with Everton since they beat us at Goodison Park because they did not deserve to win that game one bit. And they did. And it was so frustrating because they're the only team outside the top 6 that have actually beat us. And that's the frustrating thing for me when they beat us at Goodison Park last year. So the way they treated the Newcastle fans going off the pitch, the things that were thrown with them, throwing at them, the spitting, all the type of behaviour there. I was there at Goodison. I was watching it happen. It was an absolute disgrace. So for me, I've always had a bee in my bonnet with Everton after that point, and I would love nothing more for them to get relegated this season.
I think that's the thing just to follow on, and Dan can relate to this because, you know, West Ham, like Newcastle, have got a fantastic history in English football, and both of our teams have been relegated. Obviously, I know Dan, I think he's went down to League One at one stage as well, didn't he? You worked your way back up, but
long time ago that was.
Yeah. But I think the point is, everyone used to say, "Oh yeah, Newcastle, West Ham be too good to go down." But you're not. If you shit over the space of the league season, you go down. Full stop. But Everton have always had this thing where it's like an entitlement to be a Premier League side that they'll never go down. And there's still fans out there now, even when they they think they'll go down, but they say we shouldn't be going down. We should not. We are Everton. We should. It grates on you. No one's got an entitlement to be in that top 6, in the Premier League. You earn your stripes, full stop.
I think every fan should experience it. It's you know what I mean. It brings you down to earth. They need to experience. Aston Villa were the same. They need to be brought down to earth. They need to experience it. And the thing is, it's awful when you get relegated. But the season if you're not in it for as long as Leeds were. If you are in it for like a season or 2, it's great. The Forest. Yeah, you're smashing teams like every week. It's playing all these other teams. Go to grounds you ain't been to. It's great. But yeah, more than anyone, they need to be relegated. That fan base needs to experience it, and hopefully they do. But yeah, I just think like Newcastle folded too easy on that Gordon deal because he wasn't turning up to training. He was obviously causing issues. The fans had already sort of were sort of not forgiving him, had enough of him, turned on him completely. So really, I thought Newcastle was in a position of strength to the point of where it was like they could have played hardball and got him for even cheaper. Because at the end of the day, we can keep a player that's completely upset the fans of the dressing room.
We did though, Dan, because they were quoting the 60 million, like what Chelsea were apparently close to paying in the summer. They were quoting 60 million in January. That's what they wanted. And Newcastle weren't prepared to pay that. I don't think anyone would because he hasn't had the best season. Everton have not had the best season. They've been awful. So we've actually brought them down the best part of 20 million to get that fee. So we've already knocked them down at that point. And there's if the reports are right, we've been talking to Everton about the Gordon deal since before January opened. And I think Gordon almost sort of alluded to that. So, it's one of them that had to get done at some point. It was getting to a point where we needed to get that deal done. Everton needed the money because they knew Dice were coming in. And so we've kind of agreed on it. I don't
Was this a signing you needed now? Like, you needed to make this signing in January. This had to be done. You couldn't, go, do you know what? We'll come back in the summer and get it cheaper.
I think if Chris Wood hadn't gone, it would have we might not have made it. But he wanted another attacking replacement to come in, a different option. But he did say when Chris would go, it wouldn't be like a like-for-like replacement. It would be someone who could play multiple positions across the line, which Gordon can. So it's probably been something that's sped up by a window, if that. So,
and Eddie Howe has said he wanted to make progressional signings. He wanted to make at least one signing per window to improve the squad. And that was the signing. Harrison Ashby is one that you've talked about, and quite rightly, that actually could have probably waited till the summer. We'd have got him for free. But actually, with Manquillo being injured now and he's out for 3 or 4 weeks, we've already got Kraft out, as Richie said earlier. We haven't actually got any right back cover. So that was one that then needed to happen now. I think he would have been quite happy to wait. So it's one of those things. But look, talked about Everton being in a relegation battle. Sorry to bring this up, Dan, but looking at the league table, you're not in the relegation zone. That's a positive. But at this moment in time, 18 points, 16th in the league. Look, it's not a great season, is it? But just assess where you are right now, over halfway in the season. Are you in a relegation battle in your eyes, or do you think you'll quite quickly make the rise and pull yourself to safety?
No, I think at this stage in February, you have to say we're in a relegation battle. Like back in December when we was around there, I always said, look, it's too early to say you're in a relegation battle. There's more enough time to get away from it. But look, 20 games played, 16th in the table. What's that? 1 point off of the relegation zone. You have to say that you're in it. I think it goes probably from Forest down to Southampton in terms of relegation battle. So each game is crucial, and it's just not acceptable to spend 170 million pounds and to fall that far. I can understand wanting to, like, okay, we're trying to, Moyes is trying to play a new system. He's trying to go from counter-attacking to possession. We've signed all of these new players. They've got to bed. I can understand some form of going backwards, yeah. But to go that far, I think it's too much. It's unacceptable to say, oh yeah, well, you've got to go backwards to go forwards. You should not be spending that much money and having us potentially face relegation. And the problem is our form, if you look at it, it's not even just this season. It goes last season, second half of the season from January, like a year ago, in the league was awful. We excused it. We made excuses because Europe. Like, we're going deep into Europe. After every European game, we'd lose in the league. So we just accepted it. And it completely papered over the cracks. But now, in hindsight, you look back on it, it looks atrocious. So this has been a long time coming. And Moyes didn't sign anyone last January, a year ago, because he wanted to wait for the right players in the summer. So that one or two special players, extra players in January last year could have been that extra boost to get us to win that Europa League, to get us top six, like Lingard boosted us the season before to get us that, sixth place finish into the Europa League. We needed something like that. We needed a spark desperately. We had one striker in Antonio who was just flogged all season. And he went, no, wait till the summer. I'm going to get the right person. So I was like, you know what? As long as he does that, then I'm happy. Yeah. And we signed Scamacca, and I really rate Scamacca. Obviously, he's injured, but we don't play to his strengths. We're not getting the most out of him. So it makes you look even worse last season. Why didn't you just get a short term? Like we've got Ings in now. We needed that signing last January. That's what we needed last January, not now. So
injured, isn't he? He's out. How long's he out for?
He's probably going to be out for the next 2 games, I think. So he played like 20 minutes and got injured.
Mad. Like, and he's paid 14 million for him. Like, he's, for me, you're saying you brought him in, it could have been done last season. For me, Danny Ings has been a constant injury worry for the last 3 or 4 years. Like, he's everywhere he's played, he's picked up injuries. So
apparently he hasn't for Villa. That's what I was told when I said it. Everyone was flocking my mentions. He's never been injured for Villa. I was like, really?
Well, to be honest, he has had injuries for Villa, but maybe not as many as other clubs. Why? Because he hasn't played. He's been sitting on the bench. That's why. And Villa have cashed in. I think it's been a pretty good deal for Villa. I think he's the kind of player that you'll probably struggle to get rid of because he'll be constantly on the injury table. But just really quickly, David Moyes, you've been quite open with your opinions on him. You wanted him out on West Ham Fans TV. If anyone watches their match day lives, you are adamant you want him out. You want him gone. Even after the win against Everton, you were still adamant. Do you think that if you taste defeat on Saturday against Newcastle, that they could wield the axe and that could be him gone? Or do you think the owners are just going to give him as much time as he needs?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. They'll sack him, and they should, but they won't. And this is the thing now, that the time to do it, I think he would have gone if we'd lost to Everton. I mean, we beat that awful Everton side, and now we've beat Derby, so it gives him breathing room. But then you look at our next 3 games: Newcastle away, Chelsea at home, Tottenham away. If we don't win at any of those games, don't get anything from those games, we come out of it, we could be at the bottom of the table. So what a waste of time. Are we just only expecting Moyes to beat the teams that are beneath us in the table? I mean, if you're only beating the teams beneath you in the table, mate, you're getting relegated. End of the day. We have to expect to beat the teams above us. We have to expect that. Not all the time, but if you lose to Nottingham Forest, Everton away, these sorts of teams, you're losing there, then you have to go and make it up by beating the teams you're not expected to beat. Or so I'm not hearing any excuses of, oh, it's Newcastle, oh, it's Chelsea, oh, it's Spurs. No, I'm not having it. We hear that too often. So I think they're going to try and keep and stick with him as long as they can until it looks like there's no possible hope. Like it's literally panic stations, emergency break glass, get Sam Allardyce or some crap like that. Because at the time I just think like there's options out there. And I look at Brighton, and I'm going to say this Brighton example, like with their manager, no one, like apart from like the biggest football nerds, had heard of this guy, right? No one was sitting there going, oh, Brighton should get, or West Ham should get, this one should get. Everyone just comes up with the same names. Oh, Rafa Benitez, Sean Dyche, all of the same ones, Pochettino. And no one's looking at actually look. If you're a football team, a Premier League football team with multi-million pound scouting network, recruitment facilities, everything, surely you can be looking at managers out there in all of these leagues who have play styles that fit in with the team that you've got and can identify the philosophy that you want to instill in the club, and you can really analyze them. Look, we're just fans. People always ask us, well, who would you get? Who would you get? I'm just a fan. I don't have the access. I don't have the resources that a Premier League football club has. So just because I can't come up with a realistic option, doesn't mean that we should stick with what we've got, because the football club should be out there scouting all the leagues in Europe and get us a replacement. We could have done that, but yes, it's just frustrating, to be honest. He's got a chance to turn things around. I've sort of made up I've resigned to the fact that he's probably going to stay at this point, but we need to start turning things around. We beat Everton, we beat Derby now, right? Undefeated in our last 5, apparently, which is, when you look at the site, the context matters. So I'm not sitting there going, oh, we're on a great run. This is the test. Now show that, okay, you can get things ticking. It's too late for us to say team's got a gel, injuries. No, we're in February now. Get things moving.
I've got to say, Pete, before we move on, I've got to agree with what Dan says about, if the Everton result had been something different, you could have been looking at a new manager that's just overseeing the transfer window for the end of it. But I think the one thing the West Ham board, I'll look at now, they'll probably hope to pick points up at some point over the next 3. And I think what they're thinking, what I'm thinking they're thinking is they're probably looking at, if you look at all the managers that are around them on the teams who, obviously Sean Dyche coming out with a lot more experience than what Frank Lampard was, so you might have that manager bounce with Everton. Obviously, fingers crossed it doesn't happen though. But you look at the experience that Moyes has got, in the Premier League at that end of the table as well. You'd expect him to have one up on the rest of the teams around him for the rest of this season, and then possibly have to have another reset in the summer. I think that's probably the best you're going to have at the minute, unfortunately, Dan, for the rest of this season, is hopefully beat the ones around you and, perhaps mid to top half of the bottoms 10 sort of thing. I think that's probably what you'd probably think is a good end to this season, I think, after the way your first half's been.
I got a bit of like West Ham fans coming at me when I tweeted out saying like, that's almost going to guarantee Everton stay up, is getting a quality manager like Dyche. Like, we're in danger because they've got Dyche. People's going, oh, how can you say that? But it's easier as a manager to come in and clean up someone else's mess than to clean up your own, right? To get yourself out of your own mess. Moyes could have gone to Everton and got them up the table and, you know, got them firing, because you just go in and you look at the problems, the first easy fixes that you can start to improve. You look at Daesh on, you know, they're posting the clips. He's got them doing bleep tests and all sorts of things, getting them running, getting them working. He's doing the simple things, them simple improvements you can make that's going to make them better, right? And that's the little boost. That's why they get them bounced, because managers can come in and go, right, let's get the easy wins. Whereas when you're a manager and you get yourself into this mess, you know, sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. You just can't work out, where is it going wrong? Why isn't this not working yet? Why isn't this clicking into gear? So that's what I think.
I'm going to throw a question at you then. So you're looking at West Ham. Obviously, where you are on the table is not where you want to be. You're saying about a new manager coming in and being able to clean up the other manager's mess. You know, where is the mess right now for West Ham? What is the issue? Why are you not performing the way you have the last 2 years? You know, what's the reason for it?
I just think it's a case that seems to be trying to transition to a different style of play. Obviously, it was very much a counter-attacking team, and a lot of teams started to work that out, started to deal with our counter-attack. Moyes wanted to progress to a possession-based style of play. Antonio come out and said that himself. You know, himself, he's come out and said that's what we're trying to do, but it's not working. So he's trying to play a possession-based style of play, but he doesn't seem to know how to do it. He doesn't seem to know how to get the players operating effectively to keep the ball, move it around and create chances effectively. And I just look at the personnel that he puts in place, like Thomas Souček. He's only just started dropping Thomas Souček. Now, Thomas Souček is great for counter-attacking football because he can make those last-ditch tackles when you haven't got the ball. And he can also make late runs into the box and cause defenders problems, you know, when you have got the ball. And that's how he's scoring all them goals. But he can't, his passing ability is not good, and his dribbling ability is not good. So how can we have him in a possession-based system? You want to play that, but you're playing a guy that just does not work in that system. You know, he got Paqueta in. He's trying to play him as a 10 when he seems to be much better as an 8. He thought he was getting Dimitri Payet, and he's clearly not Dimitri Payet. The guy he's a workhorse. He will get stuck in with the tackles. He can link up. He can make passes, but he's not someone that is going to be this massive creator. So how he did not realize that, he's only just started realizing that, and now he's playing Rice next to Rice. So it's just taking him ages to realize what everyone else can see. Ben Rama, who is our most creative player, he has him in and out of the side every other week. He's been our best player all season.
Good player, very good.
Yeah, he don't play him. He's 1 minute he's starting, then he's not, then he's starting, then he's not. I don't understand what Moyes' problem is with this guy. Just play him every week.
And why is this guy not performing for you? We talked about this before. He was heavily linked with Newcastle, Bruno's best mate, all that stuff. You guys came in, slapped the money down, and said, "Yeah, we'll take him." You took him. Why is he not performed for you the way in which he performed for Lyon? You can argue maybe Brazil at the World Cup, although I don't think he had his best tournament for Brazil either. But why is it that he's not performed for West Ham?
I just think it comes that because he is starting to improve now. We're starting to really see him putting good performances, be a standout player. I know the opposition hasn't been great, but him playing next to Rice has massively improved his game than trying to play him as a creative midfielder. Him as a centre midfielder, we're seeing, you know, massive improvements because he can do the defensive work as well as the attacking work. You know, he has got that. He's not someone that is just a creator and is going to, you know, work in that way. And the thing is with him, and this is the thing with Scamacca as well, the way we play this possession-based football, where, by the way, we always have less possession than the other team. So that's a great sign of a possession-based team, is not playing to these things. When you see Paqueta and Scamacca link up, it's a thing of beauty. But we're never giving them a situation where we can really do it because we're not asking them to really have the ball. Everything with us is down the wings, lump crossing, down the wings, lump crossing. So you bypass Paqueta and you're treating flipping Scamacca like he's Andy Carroll, just whipping in crosses to his head when most of his goals for us come from his feet, ball to feet. So it's things like that. It's so frustrating, honestly.
No, it's an interesting one, and it'll be interesting to see how Paqueta gets on at St James's Park, because obviously a lot of the fans were excited about potentially signing him. He's obviously gone to you guys and not done well, but it's interesting you're saying he's picking
Pete,
up.
just before you move on to the next, because I know what you're going to bring up next, it was just to finish on that topic that we've just been talking about there as well, about how they've been playing and stuff like that. There's a few that have brought up some thoughts on it in the comments there. Nobody said anyone with Declan Rice, Paqueta and Scamacca shouldn't be that far down the table. There's something else, surmising it's got to be Moyes. Mark Pearson also wants Dan's thoughts on Mark Noble leaving the dressing room at the end of the last season. Has that had something to do with that West Ham's dropped away? Obviously, he's West Ham through and through, spent his entire career, was club captain. I know he's just taken the role on of director of football. He's took over at the start of the year. So obviously, will that improve, the outlook, having them back in the change room and in and around the grounds? I don't know. And also, Derek wants to, because obviously we're talking about Paqueta and Scamacca. He wants to know they looked at, apparently you looked at Bruno and Isak too, but you refused to pay what they wanted. So is it something that you look at and go, or we got the better end of the deal there, or you wouldn't? The way you do business wasn't the way you like to do it, or what's your thoughts on those three points, Matt?
I think with the Noble thing, I think there's probably a degree to it. I don't think it justifies us being a relegation battle, but I think he has left a hole, because you have someone like that who's a leader, he's a big figure in the dressing room, was great at integrating new players in, especially the foreign players, making them feel welcome, take them out. People respected him. Like, he was very well respected by all the players. And I think, the way he left, I don't think Rice has been able to fill those boots. So I do think there's a degree of that. But I wouldn't make that as too much of a massive excuse. And I don't know if him being a director of football is really gonna bring back what he was, in terms of figuring the dressing room. And to the other point, listen, it's one of those things, like we're linked with a lot of players. We're linked with every player. I know Pete moans about, you get your own scouting network because you're just scouting up.
I'm telling you time and time again, for years now, you copied the scouting network.
I think that's how do we? Hey, wait. Who says that you haven't copied our scouting network? That's a matter of respect.
Because we've always been linked with those players before you. Just like
that's only because you're following the Newcastle accounts that tell you.
Okay. When was the first time that you were linked with Lucas Paqueta? I can guarantee you it was like midway through the summer.
Okay, Paqueta recently,
back in like January, like last year. It's one of those things. It's the same with Scamacca. You weren't linked with Scamacca before the end of last season. Or we
were. We was linked with him in January. Actually, we could have signed him in January, but Moyes, in his infinite wisdom, decided not to. Decided to hold off, because I'm trying to remember what the strike, because we was obviously linked with Scamacca and Darwin Núñez.
No, you weren't linked with Darwin Núñez. How is that at all? Man?
We were. I'm telling you. I will prove it to you. We were linked with Darwin Núñez. We weren't. We didn't pay the money. Them two in January.
Me and Richie talked about Darwin Núñez. What was it? November 2021.
Yeah. I could have wrote down that book of it the day after we got the takeover went through. Then
Darwin Núñez
a while,
started November. It must have been November where the links started to emerge before the January transfer window. We're linked in the window. And you know what? I throw Liverpool in the hat to that. Liverpool weren't linked until later on in the season when he started scoring additional goals in the Champions League. Man United were exactly the same. At that point, the only real team in the Premier League that was linked with Darwin Núñez was us. We were the only English team really properly.
Pete, you've just got to go back to when we did the transfer shows. We both said, if we do not get him in January, we will not get him, because other people will be aware of what's going on. And sure enough, what happened? He went and scored goals against Liverpool in the Champions League, and Liverpool went, oh, shit, this lad's good.
We'll take him.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go back and find the stories, but everything's coming up is when he scored against us. So you really got to
don't come with this, Lawless, man.
No, I'm telling you, I will send you screenshots.
Send it to me. If you find it, send it to me.
We were linked with him, and the price tag was too high, and Moyes didn't want to take the risk. It's just typical Moyesness, Diver Dave, as they call him.
But look, it's you made a point earlier on in the show. Actually, I didn't really elaborate on it, but you talked about your club's scouting network, and that's like, and I mean in terms of young players, I mean the way in which you're using your academy. You let the likes of Ashby go, and you questioned whether it's something to do with how they're moving and making things happen in the background. Maybe that's the case. Maybe they're not quite sure at the moment. It does seem like a Danny Ings signing is very a short-term mindseted signing, in my opinion. And maybe that's the way they're going down because of the situation you're in. But it's not really long-term thinking. And maybe that's a little bit of a worry because
we've got a problem at this club, right? When we sign players, people question whose signing was it? Is this a Sullivan signing? Is this a Moyes signing? Is this a Rob Newman signing, who's the our head of recruitment we got from Man City? Now, is it a Noble signing? Now he's our director of football. Because we've had so often in the past this just disjointed recruitment process of, well, okay, you bring in some players, but Sullivan likes this player, or his son has recommended to him because he's good on Football Manager. So, he'll go and sign, this player. Or and there was rumours Noble tried to, a lot of very story from very good sources that Noble was trying to resign recently over how the transfer window went. He wanted Moffy from France. And then they went and got Ings. And I think more, understandably, Noble's coming into this going, I'm the director of football, so surely transfers need to go through me. This is my job. And you're just going off and signing Ings without even consulting me. And that's the mess that we're in. So I look at it, when I look at Ings, I can't sit there and say, this is the thought process, this is the strategy, because we don't know. It's been like this for years. Who signed this player? And even Big Sam will go back and he'll tell you, like he used to say, he'd come up and they'd give you gifts. You'd turn up and there's a new player there that you don't even know who the hell he is. Sullivan's just signed him and here you go off to training. That's the mess. That's the mess that we've got with the recruitment. And that's when someone needs to take charge of it. And I don't care who it is, just one person who knows what it is, with a vision, do it. If Noble, to me, I was very surprised because this is his first job in football outside of playing the game. And he's director of football, big responsibility. But if it's going to be him, give him the keys, let him do it. And let him have one person's vision. This is how we should play. Obviously, consult the manager, but this is how I want to play. These are the type of players that I want us to sign. And do it.
He's Dan's right, though. There's not many Will Stills about. I don't know if obviously you've got to know who Will Still is to get the joke. I don't know if Dad knows who he is, Pete. I don't know if you know he is.
Big West Ham fan.
He's the new Reims manager, and he was given the job at Reims because of his record on Football Manager. And since he's come in, he's now 13 games unbeaten for Reims. So there's not many of them out there. So as he just going on,
a lot of our fans are saying sign him up because he's a West Ham fan. They're saying,
hey, surely for you to do a better job than Moyes, eh?
They're getting fined 20 grand a week because he ain't even got his license yet. He's not even licensed.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
he's getting fired 20 grand a week. So yeah, look, it wouldn't surprise me if we did. But listen, I've got to see a little bit longer how he does before we take a risk like that.
Taking points off PSG though at PSG.
Yeah. I mean, he's got Balogun from Arsenal firing like crazy. So he could be one of them shrewd signings that people, again, don't think, not the obvious names. You look at someone and you go, yeah, I can see what they're about. If we give them the tools, they can come in and do something. You've got to do that. And like I said, people I hate that. Who would you sign then? Who would you sign? Pochettino won't come to us, so we might as well not bother getting any manager. We'll stick with Moyes. Like, it's literally Poch or nothing.
See, you're right on what you've just said, that because you go to the Newcastle appointment last year, everyone was saying that Eddie Howe was a terrible appointment because it wasn't the fashionable name. You know, it wasn't going to fit with the consortium, you know, thoughts of how they want to take the club forward. He's not, you know, a big enough name. He hasn't got this. He's only going to be a stopgap manager when he came in. And he's proved now, and I think Peter will agree with this, he could be the manager going forward for, you know, years and years. You know,
I think I remember people wanted Emery over Howe. I remember seeing that. Emery was big.
I don't think people wanted him over Howe. I think it was because he was. It looked like when Sky announced that he would be the next manager. So, but when he was put forward, it's almost like Newcastle fans in their mind are preparing for that type of manager coming in. So they're looking at his history, looking at the Europa League, and thinking, "Oh, yeah, okay, he's a high-profile manager. Yeah, great."
You know what, Pete?
But like. Richie,
you always put a positive spin on things, don't you?
No, but it is. It's a natural reaction. If that happened to you, if you had the situation where you had someone like Pochettino that was linked, came upon Sky, you know, after his game in the Champions League, which is what Unai Emery was with us, he's going to take the job. In your mind, you're going to start preparing. Oh, Pochettino coming in, what he's done, who he's managed, blah, 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 going back to the job he did at Tottenham. You're going to start preparing as a fan base for your manager coming in. And then very quickly, it turns out that actually that's not the case. And there's another manager there waiting in the wings. And that was Eddie Howe. For me, I was always happy with Eddie Howe coming in. Anyone that watches this channel knows that I've bigged up Eddie Howe way before, a year before he was even linked, way before even the takeover. I wanted him to be our next manager because I could see the qualities. Look, I didn't see the qualities that he's doing now. I didn't see him doing what he's doing this season, no doubt about it. But I saw him in the way in which he coaches his players, in which he works with his players, how he could make a team better. And we needed that. We needed a team to be better in order to keep us in the Premier League. He's way outdone what I expected of him. And
yeah, he's what you said before. We always knew he was a good coach, Pete, before when he was at Bournemouth. However, that break and him going off to club after club after club and picking up different things off different coaches, you know, tactics and setups and all that, is took it to the next level to be an excellent coach now. Obviously, you start getting trophies and stuff like that, and you know, getting to Europe every season. Then you start to think, well, is he classed as a world-class manager from then? So he's still got a lot of progression in his own career to take all the stuff that he learned on going forward with Newcastle, well, hopefully with Newcastle.
And he's 43 years old. Although he's been managing for the best part of 10, 12 years. He's still
600 games he's managed in his career, 43. It was his 600th game on Tuesday night.
So he's still got years left in the game. You look at Mourinho when he first come in at Chelsea, he was the new young manager. He's just turned 60. You know what I mean? Like you look at Howe's got so much time in the game to build and progress. Look, there's a number of things that we could go to. There's a number of questions and things that we're going to go to. Lawless, I hope you're okay for a little bit longer. I hope you're feeling all right.
Yeah.
But
by the way, private chat, Fabrizio Romano, tweeted West Ham. Look at this tweet. Darwin Núñez will be another big name to watch in the summer. West Ham made an official bid for him on deadline day in Jan. 48 million euros turned down by Benfica. Hammers alongside other clubs will be backing for him in the summer, this time with good chances. Thank you very much.
Yeah, 15th of March. We're already heavily linked with him by then. So, yeah, forget that.
But we made an official bid for him in January, which got turned down. And you tried to say we weren't linked with Núñez. We made a bid. Did you make a bid? Did you bid? I don't think you bid.
I'm not sure.
Well, there you go, innit?
I'm not being funny. We're a tight ship. We don't hear anything nowadays. West Ham just fling out information all over the place now. Like it's a free for all, just like we used to be back in the day. But no, fair play. You were linked earlier than I thought you were with Núñez. But yeah, look, I wanted to put on Mike's message and Richie kind of signposting me to it. And we were aware. He said, "Evening, lads. Looking forward to tonight's show. Laid my dad to rest this afternoon, and I know he's flying high. Looking after Newcastle family. Much love from the gents family. Mike, from everyone at Loaded, just best wishes. Thoughts are with you. It's always a tough time when you're going through something as significant as this. But I hope that we give you just something to smile about and just a little bit of enjoyment with regards to the show and talking about all things Newcastle United, because that's the one thing that links us all together, the club that we love. So big love to you, Mike. Thank you for joining the show tonight. It means a lot to us personally. Keep strong. Better days ahead, but we really appreciate all your support as always. Moving forward, I think it's time to look at the match in a little bit more detail, and of course, can't do that without some stats.
Evening, lads.
He appears. Keith, Double O Stato, how you doing, my man? How's things?
Very well, thank you. Best I've felt in 24 years. Want to party like it's 1999? I want to party like it's 1999.
Yeah, love it. Look, West Ham, or Newcastle West Ham, St James's Park, Saturday evening. Hopefully you've got some positive stats for us, because we need that win Saturday. We need to keep that winning mentality rolling. What you got for us?
Got a load of stats here. Get ready to strap yourself in for some up and down stats, some head-to-head stats, manager stats, goalkeeper stats, player stats, and some general stats to round off. Head-to-head all-time record, played 140 times, Newcastle and West Ham. Winning edge to Newcastle, 58 wins, 39 draws, 43 losses. Head-to-head record in the Premier League, 37 games with 17 wins to Newcastle, 10 draws and 10 defeats. And Newcastle have scored more goals in this fixture, 64 goals compared to 49 for West Ham. So Newcastle have got the attacking edge. West Ham have got a slightly more defensive edge, though, with 17 clean sheets compared to 14 for Newcastle.
Ooh.
The manager record as well. Eddie Howe, his record in games against West Ham. In 14 games, he has 5 wins, 5 draws, and 4 defeats. So slightly down the middle there for Eddie Howe against West Ham. David Moyes, his record against Newcastle. He's managed 30 games, 11 wins, 8 draws, and 11 defeats. Moving on to goalkeepers, Nick Pope now has 12 clean sheets in the Premier League this season, and that compares to Lucas Fabianski's 4 clean sheets for West Ham. Nick Pope as well, he has a clean sheet in his last 6 games in the Premier League. No English goalkeeper has ever done this in consecutive matches in the Premier League. So that'll be a record that goes on Saturday if Nick Pope keeps another clean sheet at St James's. Players, Callum Wilson, he scored 9 goals in 11 games for West Ham against West Ham. So a really good record.
Love it.
Although I tinge that a little bit by saying he hasn't scored in his last 7 Premier League games in a run that goes back to the 29th of October when Newcastle beat Aston Villa. Jared Bourne, he has 8 goals in 27 games, and Gianluca Scamacca, He's got 7 goals in 24 games. They're the top scorers for West Ham this season. Some general stats just to round off things. West Ham won this fixture 4-2 at St James's last season on the opening day of the season. Not a happy memory here for Newcastle fans. But they haven't won consecutive away league games against Newcastle since 1998. And since losing 3-0 and 2-0 to West Ham in 2018-19, Newcastle have scored in the last 6 games against West Ham, losing just 1 game, drawn 2 and winning 3 in the last 6. West Ham, on the other hand, they've scored 11 times in the past 4 league games against in their visits to St James's Park, and that's as many as the last 14 games before that. So West Ham do have a better scoring record in their recent visits to St James's Park. West Ham when they beat Everton 2-0 in the last Premier League game. They're looking for back-to-back wins for just the second time this season. And also as well, I mean, they did really well in that game against Everton, but they're without a victory in their last 8 away games. So they've had 3 draws and they've had 5 defeats. The last away win came back in August against Aston Villa, 1-0. This stat really impressed me when I seen this one. Newcastle have been behind in a match for just 80 minutes in this season consecutively. And that's fewer than any side. So that's an incredible record for Newcastle, as well as all the clean sheets that they've had. And they haven't conceded in the first half in any of their last 16 Premier League games. So an incredible record that for Newcastle. So quite a couple of happy ones there to round off for you.
Yeah, we don't normally get too many happy stats there, but there was some.
Well, wait a minute, Stato, right? The stat I didn't hear is most goals scored by a team in this fixture. 8-1 West Ham, yeah, back in the 80s.
That was pre-Premier League. It's pre-Premier League.
Oh, football started in 92.
Peter Beardsley was behind the sticks as well, I believe, that game as well. I think Newcastle had about 3 goalkeepers, didn't they, in that game?
Yeah.
And it was over the Christmas and New Year period, so you know what it's like. And I'd just like to say as well, Dan, last January, I do believe that Newcastle might have put a bid in for Darwin Núñez, had it rejected before they bid for Chris Wood, which would explain why Chris Wood came to Newcastle.
I need to see the Fabrizio tweet. I have to see the Fabrizio tweet to confirm this.
No, look at
it. Might have been Luke Edwards. I want to try the Luke Edwards source.
He's not Fabrizio, is he? Like, you know, what's that?
If you've got it, throw it out there. Let's bang back with another one. Absolutely top stuff, Keith. Not just with the stats, but also just putting Lawless in the mud again with the old Núñez links in there. Great stuff as always. Look, I want to come to the game. The game's massive for both clubs for very, very different reasons, and I want to get your thoughts on this. But first and foremost, Dan, I didn't ask you for your prediction. I've kind of gone with the same team that you played in the last game. Now, this might be different to you. You might think that you might set up in a different way. Does that look like a team that you think may well start at St James's Park on Saturday?
Yeah, that's pretty much the exact team I expect to see. I'm so very surprised, actually, that you guys have got that down. Because, that's the team I'm expecting. I expect us to play a back 5. Moyes seems to be wanting to... He's dabbled with it, but now he seems to be really going with it. Obviously, Zumo is injured. I thought you had... Yeah, so that will likely be Kerr or Johnson.
Oh, okay. I didn't realise.
Yeah. Zuma's injured, so it could be Kerr, yeah.
I don't even know how to spell his name. Jesus Christ.
I think it's Kehrer or
Kehrer.
RER. I think so.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
We'll go with that. That's that. Sounds,
yes.
I didn't realize Zuma, but what's happened with Zuma then?
Oh, he picked up an injury in the Everton game. I think it was, or either in training. He's always injured, that guy.
Shouldn't
So
kick Caston, should he?
What's that?
Shouldn't kick Caston, should he? Would be pulling his muscle.
Oh, look at this! Still bringing up that he's paid his price.
We'll put it this way: he probably really thought that Chris Wood would have still been here and given him some meow comments during the game.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Chris Wood. Where is he now, Chris Wood?
He's above you with the table still.
Oh,
yeah, for now. But we get 3 points. Against the old black and white stripe brigade. I think we'll be climbing up the table.
Let's see. Look, you've got that team there. Look, Lawless, from your perspective, where do you see West Ham winning the game against Newcastle? You heard the stats from Keith. You know, in terms of being behind, only been behind for 80 minutes over the course of this season. Haven't conceded. I think I'm right in saying, Keith, in the second half for a long period of time. We are a tough unit to beat. Yes, we've got players missing, but we've also got players coming in. Where do you see your team potentially winning the game? Like, talk to us.
I think it's going to be a battle of attrition, really. I think it's going to be we won't see any early goals in this game. I think we're going to be very tough to break down. I think we're going to approach this very defensive and cautiously. Newcastle, from what I've seen, have sort of struggled in front of goal lately. And we've Keith has pointed out, defensively, we've been pretty solid. It's been scoring goals that's been our problem. That's been the big issue for us, is scoring. So yeah, I think we can just keep it tight and just pick our moments. I mean, set pieces was something that was such a big threat for us in the last couple of seasons, and now we've dropped off of a cliff. Like, our delivery of set pieces is disgraceful for a professional football club. It is so shambolic. How can a team be so good at set pieces and we can't even, like, just crossing is poor? So I can't even say that, to be honest. So it's going to be a counter-attacking situation. This is from the possession-based side, by the way. And I think that's how we're going to have to catch you out. It's you're at home. The onus is going to be on you to attack. You're going to have more of the ball. Yeah. And we've just got to frustrate you and pick our spots, really and truly. Interesting to see old St. Maximum in there, because I was hearing that he could be on his way out because Gordon's in, and Gordon's going to be starting over St. Maximum. And I was hearing him linked with West Ham, and like, oh, would you take St. Maximum? I was like, yeah, of course I'd take him. If they want to have Gordon, you have Gordon, we'll have St. Maximum, mate.
No, he's not going anywhere. Just to make that absolutely clear, and obviously the window's closed now, so he's not going until at least the summer. But look, this is my team. This is the team that I think will start the game against West Ham. And look, I'll come to Richie and Keith in a second with that. But look, you've obviously got that midfield two now that you've talked about before, Rice and Paqueta. It'll be interesting to see how they get on. In my opinion, against Willock and Joe Linton. I think that'll be a nice little battle in there. We know the last time at the Olympic Stadium, Joe Linton got the better of Rice. He was outstanding that game when it was 1-1. But then we've got the old rivalry again, Rice and Longstaff return.
You guys need to, honestly, I need to hear apologies for that comparison. That was coming up.
To be fair, it was a long time ago, of course, but to be fair, they could be partnering and linking themselves up in the years to come for playing for England. The way Longstaff's going, a couple of goals in the semi-final second leg, having a decent season. Maybe I'm being far-fetched. It might be in the future. Who knows? But look, I'm looking at this team, and I'm looking at obviously Rice and Paqueta. If they're on song, it's going to be difficult. Interesting. You said you're going to be defensive, so it could well be that Soufals and Emerson literally pin themselves back in here and make it difficult for us to get in the lines. And if we've got ASM, who I believe will start down here, that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting how we deal with that Suffolk getting forward. But look, the key for me is, can you keep these guys quiet? Okay, Wilson, yes, he hasn't scored for a long time, but he's good at holding up the ball. He's good at linking the play. He had a good game until he came off, in my opinion, against Southampton. He's just not getting the opportunities in front of goal. It's not like he's missing chance after chance after chance like Longstaff has been recently. He's not really getting chances in front of goal. But we know with Wilson, if he gets a chance, he'll put it away, and he just needs that opportunity. But look, from your perspectives, I'll come to you first, Richie. Would you change anything with the Newcastle team? And where do you think we can win the game against West Ham?
I think realistically, that's probably going to be the team that we'll go for, because we've pretty much only got 3 centre midfielders now anyway, because obviously Shelby's gone, Bruno's suspended for 3 games. So it's going to be interesting if anything happens to those 3. Whether it even comes down to fatigue, because obviously the games that they've played and stuff like that, so that'll be interesting. But I think the only position that's in doubt really is going to be the ASM one. Because obviously I heard the chat that you were talking about at the end of match day live. Is it going to be one of the ones where, because of the lack of defensive side of stuff off ASM and his ability, to press and track back and help burn, is it going to be a game where Murphy could come in for that and then ASM comes off the bench? Obviously, I know Gordon is being bought into a similar position, but we all know that Eddie Howe tends to wean them in gradually. He doesn't like, he likes to show loyalty to the people that have been good from so far of the season. So realistically, it's probably going to be ASM. There's an outside chance for Murphy. Gordon would pretty much only come in if there was an injury, in my opinion. But obviously, I do think he'd be an impact off the bench at some point. But yeah, if I'm going to be realistic, I think that's going to be the team that starts, Pete.
So where do you think we could potentially win the game then? Where do you think it is setting us up against West Ham? Where can you see us scoring the goals?
I think if you obviously if you look at the midfield, with the midfield 3 we've got it's whether Paqueta would actually fancy the fight against the ones that we've got in there. Obviously, we know Longstaff, Joe Linton, but can play similar games to Rice, not afraid of the tackle. Will Paqueta fancy that? My one concern about Paqueta, obviously, we know he hasn't hit the ground running so far for West Ham, is he's at Newcastle. He was playing at Newcastle on Saturday, a team that was heavily linked to him. Apparently, it was all done and dusted. Obviously, with Bruno's best friend and stuff like that. Could this be a coming out display by Paqueta to prove a point of what you could have had, sort of thing? That bullseye special prize. Look at what you could have won, sort of thing. That's the danger thing about Paqueta on Saturday. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But I think the midfield battle is one we can win. I think that's where the game can be won. Obviously, we don't have the creative side with Bruno missing. What you've got to remember in our last home game, though, against Fulham, we only played the first half with Bruno. We didn't have him in the second half. It was 0-0 when he went off, and we still managed to go on and win the game and create chances against Fulham. Obviously, it needed the substitutions off the bench of ASM, Isak, and stuff like that to do that. So, the other chance we have to possibly win it is our strength and depth on the bench for a change as well. There's some good quality players that can come on and affect the game as well if it's a nip and tuck like the Fulham game was.
Okay, Keith, from your perspective, from what Richie said, from what I've said in terms of how the team's set up right now, do you think, do you agree with what's been said, or is there anything else that you may make a slight change on with regards to the way in which we're set up and how we potentially could win the game?
So on paper, I think that's the strongest lineup. The only thing I would suggest, again, I've said it in previous weeks, maybe Isak playing where ASM is, because he was the one who came on and made that change in the against Fulham and won Newcastle game. Does he give you something a bit more than potentially than ASM would at the minute? Linking up with Wilson, perhaps. that would be the only thing I would suggest with that. I think I would still have no qualms if ASM started and you bring Isak off on the bench, maybe on 65 minutes, if you're looking for a winner.
Yeah, and what was interesting in the game against Southampton, the second leg, is when Bruno got sent off, it was like this. Is that ASM came on in that position, but when Bruno got sent off, they actually switched it. They put Isak there to be more of a defensive-minded player and let ASM kind of just drift in between the little pockets here as a forward. So it's a good point that you've raised in that clearly from Eddie Howe's perspective, he hasn't got an issue with playing Isak there on that left-hand side. I just think for balance and the fact that we're playing at home and the fact that from what Lawless has said is that if West Ham are sitting back, it's going to allow Newcastle more of the ball. It's going to allow ASM to have an opportunity to go at the fullback Soufal and Kira on this little section here. But more so than anything, ASM needs an opportunity to prove that he can play and start regularly for Newcastle. And at some point, he's going to need to be given his chance. Whether he takes that chance is another thing. But I think at some point, he's going to need to have that chance. And that's why I just think that he's not going to change too much about the team, but ASM may well be the guy that comes in. I also think as well is that, let's be honest, if something happens to Wilson, Isak's going to be the natural replacement. And I just don't believe that Eddie Howe's going to play them both in the same team. Not right now. Not especially because we haven't got someone like Wood to come on as a third choice. That I think it's either going to be Isak or Wilson, one of the two, with regards to games, to ensure that we've always got an option available if one of them does get injured. That's just my thoughts on it. But
I think one of the things just to bring up before on that topic, Pete, because a few people bring it up in the chat as well. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're talking about Isak. It's only if he's being cleared from the concussion protocol the other day.
Yeah, and to be fair, he tweeted and said it was minor, and said it was a minor head injury. I think, if I'm right in thinking, was he hit by the ball from the free kick of James?
It was, yeah. Ward-Prowse, yeah.
So, look, if he gets checked over, which he would have by now, and I'm sure we'll find out from Eddie Howe tomorrow, if he's been checked out and has been given the all clear, they'll know by now whether it was concussion or not. Then he will be ready to play. And the fact that he's tweeted out and said nothing major, it was a minor head injury, that I believe that he'll play on Saturday. That's just my opinion. Could be wrong, but they have to take precautions and use it as a concussion sub. There's been many before that have been used as a concussion sub. Turns out it's not a concussion, and therefore is okay to play in the next game. And I think Isak may well be the same. So we'll see with that one. That's for sure. But it's interesting. Lawless, anything to add on that before we move on?
No, I was just going to say, obviously, it's going to be a lot down the wing. So you'll see a lot of Soufal, Burn, Emerson, Trippier, Almiron, ASM. Just expect a lot of action down the wings, I think, with this game, especially from us.
Yeah. Definitely, especially if you're going to set up like that, then a lot of your play is going to come down those wings, and that's going to be interesting actually, because we normally see Trippier here when the positions are set. Trippier is normally up here, but if he's got a wing back to deal with, is he going to be based down here? But what you've then got to worry about is that even if Trippier is down here, he's got the ability to find Almiron in these positions, and is that going to push out Aguerd here, who's a terrific centre-back, by the way, and will come very, very good for you. Is it going to pull him out here, which leaves gaps for Willock or even Longstaff to push into this little spot here, which he's done time and time again? They're the things that we're going to be aware of. Or if we get pushed up here, is it going to allow Emerson into these pockets here, where Longstaff's going to have to come up across, Ben Rama, looking in these little areas here. Antonio, we know, is a big, strong lad and can put himself about. That'll be a good battle up against Shaw and Botman from a physicality point of view. All things to consider as the game's going on. But tactically, I think it's going to be a really interesting game because there's clearly two separate tactics going on to try and win the game, and how that works out will be fascinating. So,
yeah, it's interesting. I was going to say, can I just get Dan's thoughts? Obviously, one of the concerns we mentioned before was obviously ASM defensively. Obviously, we know that it's his weakness pretty much. So obviously, a lot of our attacking does come down the right side with Trippier and Almiron. What's Ben Rama like on the defensive side? And we know he's a good player going forward, but what's he like? Is he very similar to ASM? You know, his defensive work's not there or not the greatest. What's it like? So obviously, that's probably for me one of the main areas where we will create. Almiron and Trippier have got a fantastic understanding, which has been, as they mentioned, it's been developed since pre-season. They just seem to know where they're going to be at the right time and what ball to play and where to run, etc. Is that something you think you'll be able to cope with on that left-hand side?
I think his defensive work is better than people give him credit for. To be sure, like a lot of people don't give him the credit that he can, track back and stick in a tackle. Obviously, it's not his strongest part of the game. We don't want to rely on him to do so, but he will chip in if need be. So yeah, I mean, look, I see Sharky there says Ben Rama will be on the bench. He can't be on the bench. There is the chance he plays Fornals, who is a little bit more, probably could give you a bit more of that defensive work, but is less creative. And that's the problem, is if we don't have Ben Rama, but we have Fornals, we're going to lose so much of that creativity for Antonio. So yeah, I just think Ben Rama there, have him chipping in every now and then when we are paired back. He can stick a tackle in, try and win the ball back, and progress in attack.
Interesting. It's going to be fascinating to see how it comes out. We always look at this on away days and look at how tactically it falls during the game, and we always come back to away days to see how it kind of came together. So it'll be interesting to see how that one works. That's for sure. But look, let's get a few questions in before we get predictions and see the show out. Is there any I know there's some questions. I can see the normal. But let's pick out just a small section of questions to ask to Dan with regards to all things West Ham and Newcastle before we get to those interesting predictions as always.
Yeah, I've got to bring this one up because obviously it was made by two people as well. PDK, is Richie and Lawless twins? And Michael Promar saying, separated birth, Dan Lawless and Richie story. The only difference is I supported a quality team. Dan didn't. There you go. But
wait, I might have supported Newcastle before you. I might have supported them first.
He had a Newcastle top. He supported Newcastle. He did.
Well, it depends. What's your year of birth, Dan? And I'll tell you.
Well, late 80s.
Oh, well, I've got about 10 years on you, mate. It's a new chance.
See, this is why.
Distant cousins or something, maybe. Perhaps.
Being bald helps. It makes you look younger. I'm telling you.
I'll definitely take that, Dan. I'll take that, man.
But to answer your question, yes, all bald white blokes with beards are related. We're all related.
I love it.
Right, there's a couple that were from the start of the show. Obviously, we were talking about Harris and Ashby. Lisa Ahmad, a fantastic question. She says, I've seen a lot of West Ham's slagging Ashby off. Is that just sour grapes, or do you actually rate them?
I think it's probably a mixture of both. I do think that a lot of reports came out about his attitude that has spread into the fan base, that have seen that, the sympathy for him has gone. So half the fan base are like, well, we didn't get a chance. The other half are like, well, he didn't get a chance because his attitude's wrong. So I think it's a mixture of that. It's just up to what people want to believe. So I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Another one, I think I know the answer. I think I know the answer to this one about Harris Ashby is about was his cup target for the final. I don't think he actually played for you in the Carabao Cup, did he?
No, I don't think so. He was on the bench for a couple of games. I'm sure he's played one game this season. I'm sure I see him come on as a sub, but he has been on the bench.
Yeah, I had a look. I don't think he did. I think it might be one of the earlier rounds of the European competitions. He might possibly come on, but I don't think he did. So as far as I know, he's not cup tied for the final. But it'll be interesting to see on that one. Another nice little funny one for you. Rayborough wants
as if you're going to be playing him in a final, but I love this optimism you Newcastle fans have.
You don't know. We've got Bruno suspended for 3 games. We've got the potential of injuries. You've got Eriksen missing for Man United now until April. anything's possible in the next 3 weeks before the game. So, it's easy to dismiss it now because Trippy is fit. But
the only thing we know, Pete, is that Bruno's going to be fresh.
Yeah, his next game is the final.
Yeah.
So he will be ready to go. There's no doubt about that. But in terms of who's available after that, in terms of the rest of the squad, it's up in the air because you just don't know.
Yeah. Raybro basically wants to know what shirt that Dan will be wearing. Exactly. Will it be claret and blue or will it be black and white?
I'll have my half and half scarf on, yeah? No, of course it's claret and blue all the way.
Ray, I also want to say thank you very much for the 899 sticker as well. Much appreciated, mate. We always appreciate any donations to the channel from all of us here at Loaded Manga NUFC. Let's have a look a bit further down. Some good questions to try to see which ones we've actually already covered or not. Michael Pomar wants to know that if West Ham were to qualify for Europe, if they win the European Champions League, could they in end deny us a European place, taking away the league position qualification? If it's whoever wins the Europa League gets a Champions League place, so it does take away the whoever was to come fourth. I do know that because obviously didn't that happen with Spurs? Yeah, it was if Liverpool had won it or something, it was Spurs. Spurs didn't get it, did they, when Liverpool won it?
Yeah, yes, happened to Spurs. Yeah, well, it's a weird one because there's obviously two positions. With if you finish 5th or 6th, you get Europa League. So yeah. I think 6th could potentially lose it. And then you guys are guaranteed if you win the Carabao, right? Which obviously Pete doesn't want to win because he's not a fan of these domestic trophies. He has no interest in them whatsoever. Doesn't respect them.
I never said that.
Come on, Pete.
People respect every bit of silverware Newcastle can win going forward from now on because we haven't.
Already won the Saudi Cup this season. Already won the Saudi Cup, remember?
Oh, Pete loves the Saudi Cup. He loves that one. He's all about the Saudi Cup.
Yeah, of course. Why not? To be fair, what I said was on the 12-man chat, I said, I'm unlike a lot of Newcastle fans, and this is true, the Newcastle fans have a very close affiliation to the FA Cup. They want to win the FA Cup. I've not been a fan of the FA Cup since it started to turn. So, for example, I loved the FA Cup when you had the build-up in the morning. You had the build-up starting at like 9, 10 in the morning. There was a build-up to the game. There was like coverage all the way through when kickoff was like at 3 o'clock. So you'd see the team coach leave the hotel, they track it all the way through to Wembley. You see the players in the suits come out. It just gave me that buzz of what the FA Cup really meant to English football. And I loved it. And you know what? We played in a couple of those finals, so I loved it even more. But just recently, in the last 15 years or so, the FA Cup hasn't had the same buzz for me. I don't really care too much for the FA Cup.
So you don't care about getting knocked out?
What Lawless and what Dan, Man United fan on the 12th man, took that as is that I don't care about cups and I'm not bothered about us winning a cup. And I said to these guys, if I was offered a cup, of course we take it. We haven't won one for God knows how long. Of course I would take us winning a cup. We're in the Carabao Cup final. I'm happy we're in the Carabao Cup final. I'm buzzing. We've got a chance to beat Man United.
Did they show the coach leaving for the Carabao Cup final? Did you get to see all of that? Did you get to see the coach leaving for the Carabao Cup final?
I never said that. What I said is that I'm buzzing about winning potentially a trophy. Like it doesn't mean that I like the cup as such. To be fair, I think we've always had a better opportunity of winning the Carabao Cup than we have the FA Cup. We've got further in that in recent years. A lot less recently, but actually a lot of the top teams discard the Carabao Cup, whereas actually it's a great route to Europe. And it's only really more recently that actually a lot of the top teams are now saying, you know what? We haven't got many trophies to fight for. We've got 4 trophies that we're all fighting for. Maybe we need to win one of them. Man City are constantly winning those trophies because they see it as the first domestic trophy in the league. Then they go on to the FA Cup, and then they go beyond there. I'm just not a big fan of the FA Cup. I never have been.
Man City changed the attitude of the FA Cup for the big clubs in the last 10 years, and then Liverpool backed onto it as well. I was just going to add there before, Pete, do you think when Wembley was getting rebuilt, when the FA Cup was temporarily moved to Cardiff, do you think that change shifted your attitude to the FA Cup and the magic of it? When the new one opened and they were playing the semis at the new Wembley, do you think that sort of shifted the magic a little bit away from getting to Wembley and the games at Wembley?
Yeah, possibly, because it wasn't really the same, was it? Being at Wembley is what makes the FA Cup what it is. It makes any trophy what it is. But being at the Millennium Stadium, possibly. But I love the build up. I hope it happens this season. It won't, because the FA Cup's not what it is.
Do you not think it's also down to the fact that the semi-finals are also played at Wembley now as well? Whereas you go back to the 80s and stuff, and obviously I know this changed a lot because of Hillsborough. Villa Park and Hillsborough used to tend to be the two places that you had the semi-finals.
Old Trafford as well.
Yeah. Is it because that magic has been took over of reaching Wembley when you're not actually going to a final?
Yeah, to be fair, it's a really good point. Although it's great because it gets a team that might not make the final an opportunity for a Wembley semi-final. It's great from that perspective, but it's not a final. It isn't a final, and that's the thing. For me, it just, and look, I'm an individual. I have my own thoughts about certain competitions. I have my own thoughts about certain things. People might not agree. Absolutely fine, no problem with that. But I just haven't for a long time been a massive fan of the FA Cup. It's not what it used to be. And you know what? The fact that they're making a lot of the games midweek tells you how important the FA Cup is in the eyes of English football now. It's not considered that important because they're moving it to midweek. Where it used to be the priority on the Saturday. So, it just backs up my opinion on it, that it's just not what it used to be.
I've got to admit, I think the Carabao Cup final is really important for you because obviously we haven't been to a League Cup final since the 70s, haven't won a domestic trophy since 1955. So it's a really big trophy for something that we've never won before as well. So it ticks off all the English boxes bar the Premier League title. But I also think because it's a good chance to get that hoodoo off your back sort of thing. You've got that first trophy in the bag. Then you've got a team of winners rather than people who potentially choke at the opportunities as well. So it's a very, very important game. But one thing to mention, but that Dan did mention, it's only the winners that get European qualification. The runner-up does not get European qualification. It then goes down to 7th, 8th place, whoever it is in the Premier League. So even the runners-up you have to win it to qualify for Europe. And obviously the way things are going, whoever the winners are going to be, it looks like they could be going for a Champions League or Europa League place as things stand anyway. So it looks like it'll move down the Premier League table.
Yeah, Michael Palmer just made a good point. It was the only live domestic game that we got on TV. It's that may well be it as well. Is that we all built up to that because it was the game on TV that everyone wanted to watch, and maybe that's what it was for me. But maybe it's just the time in which I grew up. I just really loved the FA Cup then, and it's just not the same now. But it is what it is. Like, it's still a trophy. We'd love to win it. You guys were close, Dan. You got to the FA Cup final. You were winning against Liverpool. That was at the Millennium Stadium, wasn't it?
No,
2006. Yeah, it was
when Gerrard literally just turned up like within 10 minutes and just turned the game on its head.
And this
Alan
is what
Pardew, the manager.
Yeah, he was, but this is what I'm saying. We're supposed to say Moyes is our greatest manager because he got us to a semi-final. Pardew got us not just to a final, but within seconds of winning the trophy. Literal seconds. If it weren't for, just a moment of madness. So there you go. You got to give Pardew his props.
Yeah, fair play.
Was that the one where he did that stupid dance on the sideline? Or was
that was Palace, wasn't it? Palace 2016.
It was.
That was not long after he left Newcastle.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was before or after Newcastle the way around. I just remember everyone looking going, "Oh, it's a cringe dad moment," wasn't it, on the side of the pitch?
I was begging for Man U to win that game because he would have mentioned Newcastle in his press conference after he won that trophy for the way in which he left the club. There was no doubt about it.
Well, I know I can see that Dan's getting fed up with final chat because obviously it's not something that the West Ham might be getting to.
We could be going to a final.
You've got a European one you might get to. Obviously,
he's put his money on it. He's put his money on it. The only reason he's in the Race to Europe show is because he's adamant that he's gonna win the Europa Conference.
As long as we're in the tournament, we're in the race for Europe, because that's what I'm saying. So let's see. We got
soon, isn't it? Starts up soon.
About a month. It's in about a month's time. Our next game.
Yeah, it's end of Feb, start of March, isn't it? Sort of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, as I said, let's talk on finals. I've got one question on it. It's from Russ, our sponsor. He basically wants to know, who are you going to support in the final of the Carabao Cup? Man U or Newcastle?
Do you know what? I'm so conflicted. About this. Because
what
you're
saying is you're going to wear your half and half Red Devils and Newcastle top then?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
why are you so conflicted?
Because on one hand, I want Newcastle to win it because it's always good to see new teams win it that don't usually win. Teams outside the cartel.
You said that weeks ago.
But
Newcastle to book the trend.
Like, that's what we have over you, is that you ain't won a trophy since like the 50s. So, you know what I mean? Then all the Newcastle fans are going to be throwing it in our face going, "Here, man, we won the trophies. Where's your trophies? You ain't won a trophy since the 80s, man." And all of that. Like, that's the problem. It's going to come back on us if we don't win that Conference League. Like, my ideal scenario is Newcastle winning the Carabao and us winning the Conference League. And then we're like, okay, cool. We've both won trophies recently. It's all good. That's my ideal scenario, but I can't bank on that. But yeah, like, obviously in the grand scheme of things, it's boring seeing the same 6 teams, or say 6, sorry, why am I even including Spurs in that? Same 5 teams win every season.
Where's Toes?
Yeah. He can't even say anything. It will just go, "Oh, but West Ham. That's his defense for everything, but West Ham." But yeah, so it's boring. Like, so it's good to see new teams win it, and for the fans that do love the domestic cups, it will be a memory. Why do everyone always says my Geordie accent is Jamaican? Everyone always says that. I don't know why.
Lawless, I've got to be honest, it did sound it. It did sound it. It had that Caribbean twang to it. I've got to be honest. I'm
blaming the food poisoning. Listen, if I'm better on Saturday for the watch along, come see. I'll give you a top tier. Do you know what? I do a good Steve Bruce. Hey, how's the bacon? Did you say?
Good lad. Good lad.
Yeah, I'll lean towards Newcastle. Just don't come and threat in our face like that. You've got this trophy, yeah.
No, to be fair, you right when I joined the Race for Europe show, you backed us and you showed your support for Newcastle. Well, not straight away, but initially, after that initial kind of,
I just didn't like the double standards that people had towards Newcastle when we was up there. People didn't want to give us the respect that we was in a top 4 race, even though we were like 3rd in the table. Saying we're not in the race. People were saying Newcastle in the race. That's what annoyed me. It was that double standards that all of these other fans had.
Yeah.
Just while on that topic, I don't know if anyone heard the interview on Talk Sport the other night with Jason Cundy and Jamie O'Hara. And Jason Cundy actually came out and said, even though he's a Chelsea fan, he wants Man United to win the cup. He doesn't want anybody else bar the big 6 winning a trophy. What's everyone's thoughts on that?
Rich, there's one thought for me. Jason Cundy's a prick.
That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah. What was this?
It wasn't the word I thought. Mine was began with a C because obviously
the only reason I didn't say the C word is because I don't like saying the C word. But if I could give any word to it, Rich, you are absolutely right. We're in the same boat. It would be that word. And I don't listen to a word that he says because one minute he's bigging up Newcastle and saying, "Oh yeah, they're going to be part of the new Big Seven, blah, blah, blah. Great. Well-deserved. Next minute, he's basically crapping on our faces saying, they're rubbish, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. He just flip-flops. He flip-flops from week to week just to get viewers in. I can't
I'll say one more thing, another thing beginning with the C. Clicks. That's what it's for. It's all for the clicks. I mean, there is some good content on there and on other channels and stuff, but they do clip them up, and they'll put the headers on and everything for it, and you can just see it now. And if Newcastle do, and if it goes the way, and if Newcastle lose the final, you can guarantee they'll put the laughter track on and they'll just rinse it, because that's what they do.
Yeah, I think there's an element of, yeah, I mean, it's a crazy take. It's an absolutely crazy take, and I can't. It's like, I've been on his show quite a few times. Met him. He's been nice to me, but that take is wild. And I think what TalkSport does is they drive debate. So he's going to take a stance that's crazy. So the Newcastle fans ring in and ring him up and be like, "Hey, man, what you doing with your bloody hair, man?" I'll try it again.
Please do it.
That was even more Jamaican than the first time.
Maybe there's a correlation there between Jamaicans and Jordan. But I don't know. But Saturday, when I'm going to listen. I'm going to come. We listen to Fog of the Tyne on repeat. But yeah, that's what it's about, debate.
Also as well, I mean, if you think as well, I mean, they always put the other one in for the balance, don't they? Like, they'll have O'Hara in, who's like Newcastle's friend for the night and stuff, just for that debate.
Yeah.
So they never they always have one on one side and one on the other side, good cop, bad cop almost.
Yeah, exactly.
There's only 2 times I've cried on this show. One when we had the takeover, and tonight. Jesus Christ, Dad. That was brilliant.
I thought I'd go better. That was worse.
Oh, dear me. Oh. Right, last sensible question before we obviously get the predictions. And it's obviously this guy's been in the news quite a lot, especially over the last month with it being a transfer window. And PDK wants to know about Declan Rice. Has he signed a new contract? If not, will he? But also, obviously, there's the rumours he was, there's Chelsea, there's been linked with him, Arsenal have been linked with him. What's your thought on Declan Rice as a whole? And Dan?
And to answer PDK's questions there, no and no. So, yeah, he's definitely not signed one, and he probably won't unless we have a massive turnaround, we win the Conference League, we get a new exciting manager in, like a top-tier manager. That's the only way that he stays at West Ham. But at the moment, it's looking unlikely. And we have to look, if Newcastle were paying out flipping 45 million for Anthony Gordon, people can't tell me we can't get at least 100 million. Enzo Fernandez just went to Chelsea for like 120 million. And people are trying to tell me, 80 million's fair for Rice. Get out of here. He's got a year left with an option on our side to extend. So, of course, we're going to extend and then go, right, cool, he's got 2 years. So summer's going to be crazy. It's going to be exhausting, but I'll be glad when it's over, and I'll be glad when he's gone. As great as he is, I'm done with it.
Yeah, I imagine for a West Ham fan, it's a boring conversation to continue having with regards.
We've been having it for like the past 3 years.
Yeah, but it's interesting to say, because I mean, Enzo Fernandez, he's 21. He's done well. He's only been at Benfica for a short time, but he's a World Cup winner. Like, does that not stretch the gap between him and Rice? I don't know. But in your opinion,
for me, it doesn't. It doesn't for me because it's not a one-man band to win the World Cup.
Team achievement. You've had some real crap players win trophies, and some players that you wouldn't pay 2p for, let alone 100 mil. So you got to look at the merits of the player and what he's achieved over the past few seasons and the quality that he can bring and all of this stuff. Like if Rice would have won the World Cup, how much would have been talking for him if England won it?
Not just that though. For me, even still now, I still think Declan Rice is worth more than Enzo Fernandez for one main reason. He's got Premier League experience. We know he can play in this league. We still don't know whether Enzo Fernandez can cope with the Premier League. the speed or anything like that, he could be a complete and utter bust.
Yeah, that's it.
The one thing I'll say is that, and I'll ask you the question, Dan, who do you think he's going to? Chelsea have been heavily linked with him. Obviously, he was there as a young lad. Arsenal, more so, have been linked with him. Dan Potts has been reminding you of that day in, day out recently. Interestingly, don't know how true it is, Newcastle have been linked with him in the last couple of days, saying that we're likely to potentially put a bid in for him. So, look, I'm not saying Newcastle are going to get him, I'm far from it. But out of the first two, Arsenal, Chelsea, or someone else, where do you reckon he's going to end up if he does leave West Ham? I think he will.
Yeah, I think he'll be the highest bidder at the end of the day. Like these clown Arsenal fans running around going, "Oh, he promised Arteta that he would join. He'd promised him. He gave his word he'd join Arsenal in the summer." Shut up. Like, he doesn't choose where he goes. He can have a say, but at the end of the day, his contract is owned by West Ham United. We accept the bids. If Arsenal come in with a little poxy 70 mil, 85 mil, whatever that we don't think is appropriate, guess what? That bid's getting turned down, mate. And he goes to someone, even if it is Newcastle. And look, he could reject Newcastle and choose to say, nah, I don't want to go. I'd rather stay or whatever. If Newcastle get top four, maybe he's more likely to say yes and go, do you know what? It's got, and they've got a lot of money coming in. They've got a good manager, exciting manager, blah, blah, blah. If he can see the pathway to winning trophies, then yeah. But Chelsea's going to be an interesting one because they've spent a ridiculous amount of money. We're going to see that in the summer. So that is the obvious choice. I think Man United are a big shout of, I think, they could definitely do with him. It's going to be interesting. Even people overlook Man City. Real Madrid have been linked with him. Ancelotti likes him, apparently. So it's going to be a massive race. It's going to be a massive bidding war at the end of the day.
Could he end up at Liverpool and reset their midfield?
Yeah, Liverpool is one that people ain't even really talking about. I mean, the thing is, FSG don't really spend the money. But if it's going to be interesting, if they get new ownership or they get new investment before then, we could see they definitely need a rebuild. They definitely need some fresh new players. And if they don't go hard and go big in the summer, they can forget about ever seeing top four again.
I think the way that you're right about the way that FSG spend it, they tend to do what Ashley always wanted to do for Newcastle. He wanted to make himself sustainable, and they pretty much only spend what they're earning from the Premier League and Champions League, winnings. That's what they tend to reinvest in the playing squad. They don't go, like what Chelsea's done, what Newcastle have done to a degree. They don't, and that's going to be their doubt. If they don't get top four this year, they're in big trouble.
They can't compete then.
No, the other annoying thing that I've heard a lot over the last few days, and you've probably heard this as well, is everyone's saying it's set in stone that Jude Bellingham's going to Liverpool in the summer. For me, it's not. I can't see him getting top four. He's not going to want to play in the Europa League or the Conference League.
Man City are linked to him now.
Yeah, they need Champions League football to secure Jude Bellingham. Now, the reason why everyone thinks it's a done deal is because not only is Jude Bellingham a Liverpool fan, but his dad's a massive Liverpool fan. And that was why they thought it was going to be a done deal with Jude Bellingham. But actually, Jude Bellingham deserves to play Champions League football. He's good enough. He's ready to really hit the ground running and be a top player in world football. He is not going to want to go to Liverpool if they're playing Europa League or Conference League or even worse, no European football. He's not going to want to take the risk because it's too much of a risk on his career for the reasons that you've just said. Because if Liverpool don't get Champions League football this year, and we do say, for example, we're going to go again. Every team is going to go again. Chelsea are going again. Man United are going to go again. Everyone's going to go again. But Liverpool need, as you just said, Richie, the winnings of or the money accumulated from Champions League football in order to invest in their squad. They are trying to use that money that they've earned through positions in the league and Champions League to buy players. They're not going to have that next year. So they're not going to be able to invest the sort of money that they have, which is why I think they bought Gakpo in January. They didn't need him, but they're trying to invest now for the future. But actually, what they've neglected is, and we talked about on the 12th man, is the positions that they need, which is centre midfield. They need at least 3 centre midfielders. They've got Keita, they've got Oxlade-Chamberlain, they've got, I think, Milner's. All 3 of them are out on contract in the summer. That's 3 centre midfielders there, like, that are gone. Henderson is falling off the radar because it is kicking on. Like, they literally need a huge revamp in there. They need more than Bellingham, but they don't have the money to get Bellingham and 2 or 3 other centre midfielders to really revamp their squad. They're going to be in this mess. Van Dijk's not the same player. Konate's not the player that they expected him to be coming in. They are in a really difficult position right now. More than I think
weaker as well in attack without Mane as well. You know, I mean, I knew they'd miss Mane when Mane went to Bayern.
The other interesting thing is, I'm getting, it's another narrative I'm getting sick of on the Bellingham. Everyone's going, yeah, Klopp's the perfect manager to develop Bellingham, and obviously, obviously, it's that you can see that the Borussia Dortmund link, because obviously that's where he was before. He knows how they bring the younger players up through there, how they develop them. What was the last player that Jurgen Klopp's developed at Liverpool? A young player, realistically, he's developed. There's nobody in that team, really. Because obviously you've got Curtis Jones who's come through the system, but he doesn't really set the world alight, really, does he? You know,
maybe
you've got
maybe Elliott.
Harvey Elliott, potentially. You know what I mean? And then you think there's plenty of other managers out there who could give him a much better developmental pathway if he was to come back to the Premier League. Yeah. You know, you look at where Arteta's developed the young team at Arsenal. Pep's obviously understandable. Eddie Howe has to be on that shout. We know what a fantastic coach he is. Whether we would go and spend that sort of money on one player, when we always said that we don't want to be spending money on players. We want to be able to, develop players as well. But you might have to pay one-off in the short term sort of thing, and that sort of price. And to be fair, Bellingham's a sort of player you could build. It'd be part of your spine of your team for years to come. It would be an investment. It wouldn't just be, say 120 million or 150, whatever it would be. That would be an investment long term if you were to get that sort of deal done. But saying it to Liverpool, it's just an absolute lazy narrative. Full stop. There's so many other players placed in the Premier League which are much better suited for him than Liverpool. The only way that Liverpool are realistically going to Champions League is if they win the Champions League this year, and that ain't happening either.
I don't think so. I want to quickly answer this question from Sharky. Bring back to West Ham. Don't forget about West Ham, bloody Liverpool, No,
go for it.
No, he just asked about West Ham takeover, right? Which is a good point. A potential West Ham. Do I think there'll be a West Ham takeover? Well, I really do. I think there's a strong chance we get new owners this year, because April, I think it's April 1st, is when the clause runs out that says that if West Ham sell the club, or Gold GSB or Gold Sullivan and Kretinsky now sell the club, they have to give a portion to the LLDC, the owners of the stadium. That runs out in April. So once that runs out, they can sell the club and keep all of the money. So I think that's what they've been waiting for. David Gold's passed away now. David Sullivan is not getting any younger. Kretinsky, I think he's just an investor. He's someone who wants to get a return on investment, comes in. He's got shares in everything. So I think it will be on the market quietly, and I think they'll be looking for new ownership. So it's going to be very interesting to watch. We could be there with you lot dressing up in the little Qatari outfits and the head things or whatever, like you lot.
Qatari?
What is it? Saudi.
We're with the Saudis. Don't get it right. Come on, Dad.
Saudis. Yeah, well, that's it. Saudis. It's the same outfit, isn't it? It's the same.
It's not the same.
We wouldn't be as shameless as that. We
it's
wouldn't
not the same. Shameless. The Qataris are PSG. The Saudis are Newcastle United.
But it's the same. No. It's the same hat, isn't it? It's the same headdress.
Not for me, it ain't.
Yeah, well, but that's it. Like I said, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens with West Ham ownership this year. Keep your eyes open on that one.
Well, maybe you'll get your takeover before Liverpool and Man United, because look, we know. Just before we get to predictions, Richie, Keith, we know we had nearly 2 years of it where all of a sudden with, oh, we're close to a takeover. Oh, there's something happened. It's not going to happen. And I'm always chuckling at times because I'm seeing Liverpool fans on social media say, we're close to a takeover. It could happen any minute. It could happen any minute. And then it doesn't. And it goes all silent and nothing happens. And my United fans go, yeah, we're going to get taken over by the Saudis. Yeah, this is going to happen. And then nothing happens. We had 2 years of that. In fact, we had probably more than that, 14 years of it under Mike Ashley, of potential owners coming in and then nothing happening off the back of it. I still believe that this time next year, Liverpool still won't probably be taken over by anybody, and they'll still be in the same situation they are now.
And they're expensive, like
and
West Ham's a lot cheaper.
That's the reason. That's the reason, Dan. And this is why I think you guys have got more chance of being taken over than those guys, because they're looking at their owners currently are looking at 4 or 5 million. The owners are going to want to 4 or 5 billion that they're going to want to go and buy a club for. Where is the profit in that? Where's the profit in that? There is no profit in that.
That's it. You can come in, buy West Ham for like what, half a billion or something, or whatever it was, 6 or whatever they valued it at last time, and spend the rest like then in pumping money on playing staff and all of that sort of thing. London club, you know, in a good location, potential there. There's every reason why some owners would rather than blow out, you know, billions on a club like Liverpool. That's going to take a lot more, you know, resources to get some improvement and to make up ground and to build on that. So, and the debts in a lot of those. I mean, I know FFGs are, but Man United are in massive debt.
Old Trafford's got to be rebuilt as well.
Yeah,
Old Trafford's by Man United.
Man U 500-600 million still in debt since the Glazers bought the club. They're still around that 400-500 million in debt, so they've got to get that covered as well as sell the club. It doesn't make sense. Newcastle were bought for what, 250 million or whatever it was. Like it was pennies, and then Newcastle, the owners were able to properly invest in the club, which they are, not just in terms of transfers, training ground, eventually the stadium, everything in and around the club, but they've got the money to go in and invest and build and regenerate the club.
Pete, we haven't mentioned your favourite team yet. We haven't mentioned your favourite team yet, Everton, and potentially getting taken over.
Yeah, well, look, if they go down, they're gonna be screwed because they've got a stadium to pay for. You know what I mean? It's the worst time for them to get relegated, which is why it's the perfect time for us for them to get relegated. But look, that's another conversation for another time. Look, Dan's been on with us long enough, and he's not well, and I really appreciate him taking the time to come and join us for this long. But look, before we go, I want to get some predictions. 7:30 Saturday evening. What do we think is going to be the score when fans are walking out St. James's Park? Richie, I'll come to you first. What do you think the predictions and the scores are going to be from your perspective?
I think Newcastle win 2-0.
Oh, he's gone for it. Clean sheet as well. Fair play.
I think Willock will have learned from his mistake off the other night. And I don't think he'll want to rollicking off Sven Botman either.
Honestly, he better have, because that was the only way they were going to score a goal, is by one of our mistakes. And literally, although they had a little bit of the ball in the second half, they didn't create anything like clear cut. And when they did, Armstrong, Pope's just class, isn't he? And he proved it again. Lawless, I'm going to come to you last. I'm going to switch to Keith. Keith, are you on the fence Saturday night as normal? And some people have put in the chat, they know you like to sit on the fence with regards to predictions, or are you going full on Newcastle win, or are you going to go not quite sure? Tell us your thoughts.
It could be a tale of both sides' attacks. And sadly, Newcastle are off the boil at the minute. I think at some point they will correct that. They're certainly not as strong in the midfield. So I'm thinking Wilson really has been off the boil as well recently. I'm going to go for a 0-0.
On the fence, 0-0. Jesus Christ, man. Okay, that's thrown me a little bit. I've got to be honest, Keith. I thought you were going for a Newcastle.
Honestly, I would love to go for a 2-0, but my confidence in the last month's been dashed. I mean, I know they've done brilliantly in the Carling Cup, but in the league, I'm starting to worry about staying in that top 4.
Wow, big thoughts, big opinions from the Statman, double O Stato Keith. Dan, does that give you?
I'm sure that'll be popular in the chat. That prediction, by the way.
Yeah, I bet it will be. Bill's not happy. Bill's not happy. You're a coward. He's not happy about that. But look, everyone's entitled to their opinion. Dan, I'm going to ask you. Does that fill you with confidence that Keith's gone with a 0-0 draw? What are your thoughts? What's your prediction?
I mean, it's along the lines of my prediction, although I do expect there to be goals. Callum Wilson will get his obligatory goal against West Ham, the prick.
I hope
so. But I'm going with a 1-1 draw.
Ooh.
I think, I think there'll be a lot of. I think Newcastle, a lot of eyes will be on the final now. There's a lot of high there. Could take their eyes off the league a little bit. Not intentionally, but sometimes that's just the way it goes. And I think, we will be quite hard to break down. But like I said, Wilson will find a way. But I expect us to get 8 goals in this game. So 1-1, which is a decent result. I've said 4 points from our next 3 games. If that's the 1 point, and then we get 3 out of either Chelsea or Spurs, then that's a good one.
I personally think Spurs is your game where you're going to pick up points. You normally do. Not that Tozer were like that, but I agree with you to a point. I think you'll score on Saturday, but I think we win 2-1. That's my prediction. I think Newcastle win 2-1. And I think that playing at St. James's Park could be the difference in getting us the result. We're not firing on all cylinders recently, in the way that we were before the World Cup. But I do think that we have enough to get the win. So I'm going to go 2-1. Lots of different perspectives. Michael Palmer, Richie's put in the chat. Jamie gone for 2-0. Lots of other different opinions with regards to scores in there. Tom Dixon's gone easy 2-in. Wow. 1-0. To be fair, KT is gone one of the best opposition fans to chat with. Good luck for the rest of the season. We're always very, very respectful on Loading Mag NUFC. Terrace's 3-0. Lee has gone for 3-0. Moise sacked. Steve Bruce appointed. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, 3 jobs in 2 years for Steve Bruce.
Yeah,
he's gonna be setting his sights on the London clubs next.
Bill's just gone for 0. West Ham. Geordie's gone for it. He's gone for it. He's gone for it. He's gone for a big score. To be fair, I'm not saying it's going to happen on Saturday, but I don't know what you boys think, Richie, Keith. Newcastle are due to turn over a team properly with the amount of chances we've created. I don't know what you guys think, but we are.
It's not happening Saturday.
I'm not saying it will be. I'm not saying it is going to happen Saturday, but we are due a big win against the team with the amount of chances we've created, the amount of chances we miss. We are due a big win.
I think we're due. I agree with Dan. I don't think we get it on Saturday. I think we might get it the week after at Bournemouth.
I hope so.
Bournemouth have to come out and attack us at being at home. We need to, obviously that we got a narrow win in the cup against them. We weren't our best when we played them at home in the 1-1 draw. There's a bit more pressure on them, obviously being in the bottom 3. They need to come out and attack us, and that's exactly where Newcastle can hurt them. So I think it'll be Bournemouth we potentially turn over rather than West Ham. I still think we'll beat West Ham.
Have you seen Moyes manage? It doesn't matter if we need to come out and attack you. He won't do it. This is Moyes. Talking about coward, he's the biggest coward I've seen, mate.
I think that's another the fact that he won't come out. I think that's another reason why we won't turn you over.
We need to break you down. Richard's right. We proved it. Look, we've talked about it before, Dan. We proved it against Leeds. we had all the possession, we had all the chances, we just couldn't break. Couldn't put the ball in the net. We couldn't put the ball in the net.
It was the same for the Fulham game for 86 minutes as well.
Took Isak and Wilson to win us the game. Otherwise, it would have been another 0-0. Like, it's a great point. It's another great talking point. I'm sure we're going to discuss it on the preview. We will be back for with a review of the game over the course of the weekend, as and when the result drops. But look, first and foremost, massive thanks to Dan. Not just because you're a top guy and you're massively respected by me personally and everyone that obviously follows the channel, but equally because we love to have opposition opinions on here, and like one or two have said in the chat, you are one of the best. And look, this is your, I think, third or fourth time on the channel, if I'm right in thinking. And we always love your opinions anyway. Keith, Double O Stato, great stats as always. Great to have you on here. And Richie, goes without saying, great points, great questions, great answers. And thank you for running the chat as always. Chatters, you guys make the show. Guys and girls, your questions, your points, your opinions. This is why Loaded Mag NUFC have been so successful. And this is why we're on our way to 6K. Click the subscribe button, click the likes on the way out. Way over 200 have been watching the channel consistently tonight. Make sure you support the channel and continue to watch and follow the channel as we grow. Guys, that's it. It's now down to the boys to do the business from a Newcastle perspective. Let's see what West Ham do. If you're not already, make sure you subscribe to West Ham Fans TV. Are you guys going live on Saturday, Dan?
Yeah, we'll be going live, mate. Probably from around 5 o'clock or something like that. You know, it always depends what time we bloody get there. But yeah, we'll be live for kickoff. Come and join us. It's always a good laugh. It's always pure chaos. You never know what's going to happen or what we're going to say. Sometimes I feel like we're always walking on the edge of getting cancelled.
Look, it's a great channel. If you haven't watched West Ham Fans TV, get involved. Great banter, great opinions, and also at times it is hilarious with what you guys come out with live on the chat. So get involved in that as well. West Ham Fans TV, make the subscribe, guys. That's it. As always, we love the opposition's view. And of course, we do love playing away. Guys, how'd you like that?
Drink it like weed and tell me if you like that, like that.